Look closely at the world around you. Every man you see is being led by a string, but it's not tied to his wrist or his neck, it's tied to his desire. He doesn't even feel the pull because he mistakes it for freedom. But in truth, he is being pulled wherever his craving takes him, and whoever offers him what he craves owns him. Machiavelli understood this brutal truth centuries ago. Greed isn't a flaw, it's a handle. Most people think greed is about money, but it's deeper than that. Greed is hunger for status, for recognition, for shortcuts, for pleasures. Money just happens to be the most convenient mask for all of these cravings. The tragedy is that men think that greed makes them ambitious. They say, I want more, therefore I'm driven. But the opposite is true. The more you want, the easier you are to control. A man with endless hunger can be led like a donkey with a carrot, forever chasing, never realizing he's walking in circles designed by someone else. Power doesn't belong to the man with endless desire. It belongs to the man who understands desire. The ruler doesn't need to be greedy himself. He needs to know the shape of other people's greed, how it blinds them, and how to feed it just enough to keep them hooked. This is the psychology of the greed trap. You don't dominate people with chains, you dominate them with promises. Consider the rulers of kingdoms. They never gave soldiers constant wealth. They gave them loot, but not too much. They dangled rewards, but never fully delivered. Because if a soldier is too rich, he leaves. If he is too poor, he revolts. The sweet spot is where he believes more is always just within reach, but never guaranteed. That is the eternal leash. The same principle controls societies today. Banks know it, corporations know it, social media knows it. They don't give you fulfillment. They give you just enough dopamine, just enough likes, just enough pay to keep you crawling back for more. You never quit because you believe the next paycheck, the next promotion, the next click will finally satisfy you. It never does. That's not an accident, that's design. Greed is the easiest human weakness to weaponize because it requires no force. You don't need soldiers to control a man. You don't need threats. All you need is to show him the glimmer of what he wants, and he will chain himself. He will call the chain opportunity. He will kiss the hand that dangles the reward. But the Machiavellian doesn't just observe this. He uses it. If you want to rise above the masses, you must master the art of dangling what others crave. You don't even need to possess it in full. Often, the illusion is enough. The promise of wealth binds harder than wealth itself because reality brings disappointment, but imagination creates endless pursuit. Think of history's merchants of power. They didn't promise certainty, they promised possibility. Gambling houses thrive on this. They never guarantee riches, they simply offer the chance. And that chance is more intoxicating than the prize itself. Why? Because greed lives in the future, never in the present. Once you have what you crave, the spell breaks. But as long as you are chasing it, the leash holds tight. Now consider how you can wield this. In business, in relationships, in politics, the greed trap is the invisible rope. Offer what others lust after, but only in fractions. Keep them thirsty, never quench completely. The half-empty glass is more powerful than the overflowing one because the half-empty glass makes them reach, stretch, strive. Machiavelli once wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars and deceivers, but they are also easily bought. Not with money alone, but with the dream of money, with status, with the shimmer of gain. The prince who understands this never rules by force for long, he rules by appetite. He makes himself the dealer of desires, and in doing so, he becomes indispensable. Look at the modern job market. Employers don't give freedom, they give salaries. But the salary is not random. It is a carefully calculated leash. Too low and workers leave, too high and workers grow arrogant. Just enough to keep them coming back every Monday, tired but hopeful. And the bonus, that's not generosity, it's bait. It's the reminder that more might come if you keep obeying. The same principle governs relationships. Greed is not random. It has a structure, a rhythm, a psychology. If you dissect it, you will see that greed follows predictable steps, like a machine. And every machine can be operated by the one who understands its levers. If you want to master people, you must learn to master this cycle of greed, because most of them live inside it without knowing. The first stage of greed is desire. A man sees something he does not have and begins to imagine his life with it. This imagination is not neutral, it is intoxicating. He doesn't just see the object, he sees the version of himself that would exist if he owned it. The car is not just a car, it's status. The money is not just bills, it's freedom. The partner is not just love, it's proof of worth. That imagined self is the bait. The second stage is pursuit. Once the fantasy is planted, the man cannot rest, he begins to chase. Every action becomes oriented toward closing the gap between himself and the dream. And here is the Machiavellian insight. In pursuit, people are blind. Their critical thinking dulls. They justify compromises they would never normally accept. They ignore warning signs. They bow to those who promise a faster path. The pursuit stage is where men sell their souls while thinking they are buying happiness. The third stage is partial reward. This is the most powerful lever. If you give a man everything he craves, the hunger dies, and with it, your power. But if you give him nothing, he despairs and revolts. The true master knows how to feed greed in fragments. This is why casinos don't pay out every time, they pay just enough. It's why bosses don't promote instantly, they dangle future raises. It's why rulers hand out small privileges, just enough to keep people hoping. Hope is more addictive than possession. The fourth stage is renewal. Once the craving is satisfied, even partially, the hunger returns in a new form. The man gets the promotion, now he wants the corner office. He gets the girlfriend. Now he wants the better model. This renewal is endless. Greed is not linear, it is circular. And if you can guide this circle, you own the man's destiny. He is never free because his appetite is never finished. This is why Machiavelli would say that generosity is dangerous unless it is strategic. If you give too much, you weaken yourself. But if you give selectively, you bind others to you. They will depend on you for their next taste. And dependency is the truest form of power. Force can be resisted, but dependency cannot. Let's turn this lens on society. Why do nations thrive on consumerism? Because consumerism is engineered greed. Advertising does not sell products, it sells fantasies. The watch is not a watch, it's success on your wrist. The vacation is not a trip, it's proof of freedom. The shoe is not a shoe, it's identity. Entire economies survive because people are trained to crave and then trapped in cycles of debt to satisfy that craving. And who wins? The rulers of the cycle, the banks, the corporations, the merchants of appetite. Now imagine applying this psychology in personal power games. You don't need to be rich to use greed as leverage, you need only to control access. Scarcity itself creates craving. If you have something, attention, time, skills, knowledge that others want, you can ration it. The rationing makes them chase harder. The less you give, the more they want. The more they want, the more they compromise. And every compromise is a victory for you. Consider the ruler who controls land. He doesn't need to farm it himself, he simply controls the access to it. Peasants crave survival, so they obey. Consider the modern employer. He doesn't need to work harder than his employees. He controls their paychecks. They crave stability, so they obey. Consider the influencer. He doesn't need to deliver all his secrets. He teases just enough to keep the audience coming back. The hunger is never satisfied, and that's why the crowd stays. But what about the individual who resists? Is it possible to escape the greed trap? Yes, but it requires detachment. Machiavelli knew this too. The man who has mastered himself cannot be baited. He can still desire, but he does not worship his desires. He sees them, he calculates them, and he chooses deliberately. This is rare. Most men are ruled by their appetites. But the few who detach become untouchable. They cannot be bribed, seduced, or enslaved. That is the true sovereign. However, most of your enemies, rivals, and subjects will not achieve this detachment. That is your advantage. Their greed will always betray them. They will think they are hiding their intentions, but their spending, their words, their choices will reveal what they crave. Watch closely and you will know exactly what bait to dangle. If a man craves status, you flatter him publicly and starve him privately. If he craves money, you give him opportunity but never full ownership. If he craves affection, you alternate warmth with coldness. He will stay addicted because his hunger is stronger than his logic. The deepest danger of greed is that it blinds men to traps. Show a man gold, and he will walk into cages with a smile. Offer him pleasure, and he will sign contracts that chain him for life. Promise him power, and he will become your servant. This blindness is what makes greed the ultimate weapon. You don't need to lie to the greedy man. He lies to himself. He tells himself that the risk is worth it, that the shortcut is smart, that the promise is real. You only need to hold the bait steady. Now think of Machiavelli's world. Princes rose and fell, but the clever ones lasted. Why? Because they knew men's hunger for wealth and opportunity was greater than their hunger for justice. Offer men stability, and they may forget freedom. Offer them wealth, and they may forgive cruelty. Offer them advancement, and they will betray their own brothers. This is not cynicism, it is reality. And reality does not change. Today, the same laws apply. Politicians don't win because they are noble. They win because they promise, not deliver promise. Citizens vote not on reality, but on the hope of gain. They don't need proof, they need desire. And once desire is inflamed, it overpowers memory, logic, and caution. The same people fooled once will be fooled again because their appetite resets the moment they are fed. The Machiavellian understands this cycle and uses it to play a longer game. He knows that true control is not about one big conquest, it's about sustained management of appetite. The highest power is not resisting greed, it is commanding it. If you can make other people's cravings orbit around you, you control their choices, their loyalty, and even their morality. They will betray their values for your rewards, and they will call it ambition. The first rule of mastery is scarcity. Never give everything at once. The promise must always outweigh the reality. The hungry man obeys because he hopes the next bite will finally satisfy him. The full man leaves because he no longer needs you. This is why Machiavelli warned against excessive generosity. A prince who feeds too much drains his own strength and breeds arrogance in his subjects. But a prince who rations carefully creates dependency. He becomes the sole dealer of satisfaction. The second rule is illusion. People do not need real rewards, they need believable ones. You don't need to have gold to control men, you only need to make them believe you hold the key to it. Illusion fuels hope, and hope fuels obedience. Consider the gambler. He doesn't keep playing because he has won, he keeps playing because he believes he will win. The same psychology controls employees, lovers, voters, even kings. Belief in possibility is more binding than possession of reality. In business, leaders don't keep employees by paying them the maximum. They keep them by dangling promotions, bonuses, and titles. Workers stay not because they are fulfilled, but because they are still chasing. Fulfillment is death to control. The most dangerous mistake is to believe greed is satisfied. It never is. What looks like satisfaction is only transformation into a new form. The man who got money now wants respect. The man who got respect now wants fame. The hunger mutates endlessly. This endless mutation is your weapon. Because no matter what stage they reach, there is always another carrot you can dangle. You never need to conquer them once, you need only to keep the wheel spinning. But beware, this same weapon can be turned on you. If you allow your own greed to dictate your actions, you become the slave. You chase illusions, promises, and shortcuts dangled by others. The ruler becomes the ruled. The hunter becomes the hunted. This is why detachment is the shield. The man who can say no to his own appetite cannot be baited. He may still want, but he does not kneel to want. He calculates, he chooses, he remains sovereign. He sets the trap instead of falling into it. The true sovereign does not fear loss because he is not owned by desire. He does not chase rewards because he knows rewards are chains. He does not beg for approval because he knows approval is bait. He walks away, and in walking away he is free. Machiavelli would tell you, power belongs to the man who can live without what others crave while feeding it to them in fragments. He is the dealer of hunger and the master of its cure. Everyone else is just a buyer at his market. The world is full of addicts. Addicts to wealth, to status, to love, to recognition. They think they are chasing freedom, but they are really chasing their leash. And the man who offers the leash in the form, so choose. Will you be the addict or the dealer? Will you chase the bait or will you dangle it? Will you be blinded by hunger or will you use hunger to blind others? The answer decides whether you rule or are ruled. The greed trap is not just a lesson in psychology. It is a manual for survival in a world of craving. He who understands it cannot be enslaved, and he who masters it enslaves others without force. That is the Machiavellian truth. And the final law is this: never kill the hunger completely. Keep it alive, keep it restless, keep it circling. A starving man revolts, a satisfied man leaves, but a craving man obeys. The craving man is your servant forever.